نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Respectful honorable friends, continuing from yesterday's discourse with regards the proper understanding of suluk and tasawwuf, and as I have been mentioning to you, that tasawwuf isn't a new concept. It isn't something that came about in later years, that it was something that was from the time of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But not only was it from the time of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it was actually from one of the purposes or the missions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he was commanded to yuzakihim, to purify and to tazkiyah of the Sahaba. And as I mentioned to you, that this tazkiyah wasn't something done totally separately, but it was part of their lives. And we find many such examples in the Quran as well in the lives of the Sahaba, where there was a need for that tazkiyah, where Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam reformed them. And in the same way, the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala and now themselves understood the importance of reformation. Just the way I had mentioned to you with regards to many of the Sahaba who were from Makkah al-Mukarramah, who brought Iman in Makkah, who were involved in shirk. Now the purpose of yuzakihim was to remove all forms of shirk from the heart. Major, minor shirk, all these are then removed from the heart, so that their hearts became purified, and they became purified solely with tawheed, with the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This transition from shirk to tawheed, this entire process was through tazkiyah, and this change that came about in them was tazkiyah. And we find it was this change that led to Sayyidina Hanzala radiallahu ta'ala and the famous and known narration where he was seen going in the streets and saying Nafaqa Hanzala, Nafaqa Hanzala. The Hanzala has become a munafiq, Hanzala has become a hypocrite. Sayyid Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala sees him and asks him, what is this that you are saying? Because he was one of the scribes of Wahi, a well-known Sahabi. That what is this that you are saying? Upon which he says that when we are in the company of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it seems that Jannat and Jahannam is right in front of us. The love of Allah, fear of Allah, all these things are there in front of us. And as soon as we leave from there and we go to our homes and we become occupied with our families and in our work, then the same condition of ours does not prevail. The way we were and how we feel, the way our condition is whilst in the company of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam isn't the same when we go away from there. Now what was this concern that he had? Because there was no change. He's not complaining about his ibadat or his other deeds, as in that now I'm no longer punctual in certain ibadat. But he's complaining with regards to his spiritual condition. That my spiritual condition is such that when in the company of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we feel inclined towards good. We feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our condition is different to when we move away. When we go away from there is a decrease in this kayfiyah, in this condition of mind. Now this concern of Sayyidina Hazrat radiallahu ta'ala was to do with what? This was to do with the inner self. He was complaining about his ruhaniyat, his spiritual condition. So Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, on hearing this, said, well, if that is the case, then this is something that I suffer from the same as well. So let us go to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and mention this to him. So here you find that it was through this process of tazkiyah that they understood the different conditions of the heart. And now you'll find that their gazes were kept on their hearts as well. So often they were looking at how they would feel, that there shouldn't be any change, not just in their physical ibadat and duties to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also towards the inner self, the spiritual side. So here's in Hazrat ta'ala, and again there's those people who didn't know what tawheed was. And now he's worried, and he's complaining about nifaq. And he's not talking about that nifaq of the munafiqeen who proclaim that they had iman, but in reality they had no iman. But he's just talking about this change of kayfiyah, change of condition. no change in Iman. But this change of condition of the heart was so detrimental to him that it made him feel concerned, and he felt that maybe this change in me is a sign of nifaq, is a sign of hypocrisy. And for that he started proclaiming that Hanzala has become a munafiq. Because his condition in the gathering of the Prophet of Allah is different, and his condition when he goes home and back to his work, his condition is different. And he is one of those same very people who in the past, prior to Iman and prior to Islam, was not even the least concerned about their ruhaniyat, about their inner self, of their spiritual side. They were least concerned about this. But now just on this slight change in their kayfiyah, in the condition, Sayyidina Hanzala is so concerned, and he's saying, Nafaqa Hanzala. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala realized that yes, this is a kayfiyah that I suffer from as well. It's something common. So what did they do about it? They came to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in other words, it shows that وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did their tazkiyah, by which they felt this change in them. And when he was their muzakki, he was the one who did their tazkiyah, they knew that for this condition of ours, we need to come to the Prophet of Allah. Just the way we come to him, with regards to Masai, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ. The Sahaba came and asked Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam about various things. So, and these were to do with the ahkam, rulings. So they came to ask him because they knew that this is a person we need to ask with regards to Shari'i rulings. In the same way, when it was a case of this ruhani condition of theirs, they knew that we need to ask Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has been sent for Yuzakihim. So they both come to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam listens to what they have to say. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions Sa'ad for Sa'ad, that, oh, Hanzala, the condition that you feel when you are in my gathering, if you were to feel like this all the time, then the angels would also salute you whilst you're on your bed. That the angels would come and salute you, and they would make salam with you whilst you're in your bed. But this condition is something it goes up and down. It is there at times and then it isn't there. Because if that condition will remain in you all the time, then for you to go back to your families and go back to your work, that will become difficult for you. And that isn't the purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't created us so that we just remain all the time disattached from everyone. And we just remain solely in seclusion in one corner of the masjid remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Jannat and Jahannam is constantly in front of us in such a way or to such a degree that now it stops us and prevents us from doing other things. No, this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for us. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified the condition. That, oh Hanzala, there's no need, you are not a munafiq. Now he was worried there. And if he remained with this, he may have thought his entire life that I'm a munafiq. And you will find so many of us also have such thoughts in our hearts. Such thoughts in our hearts, or certain conditions of our hearts, and that causes a lot of grief to us. Because we think that it is something wrong or it is bad for us to have that form of condition or those feelings. But then at the same time, we don't go to anybody to clarify it. We don't go to anybody in order to find out whether it is right or is it wrong, is it good or bad. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified him, saying, Alhamdulillah, that this condition of yours isn't something that you should worry about. It isn't that you have become munafiq and you don't have to worry about nifaq. And at the same time, Nabi Kareem said to him that it is just natural and normal for you to feel the way that you do. But in this case, for you to feel in such a way is good as well. Because if you don't feel such, then it won't matter to you. This is where you find that where there is no tasawwuf in our lives, then no matter how our spiritual condition is, it doesn't matter to us at all. Day and night, we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the effect that has on our ruhaniyah doesn't bother us at all. It doesn't bother us at all. Why? Because we're not concerned of our ruhaniyah. We'll be eating haram, earning haram, and that will be having its effect on us internally as well. This, how it weakens our iman, how it weakens our love of Allah, how it weakens our desire of Jannah, and how it increases in us the love of dunya, it increases in us love of temptations, it increases in us love and greed, love of the world and greed of this world. Now these are the effects it has on us, but it doesn't concern it doesn't worry us, because we do not have that concern with regards to the spiritual side. Sayyidina Hanzala had this, and because he had this, he went to his Shaykh, and his Shaykh was none other than the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to go and clarify this, that is this condition of mind detrimental or not. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified it, and look, it isn't detrimental. Your condition is going to be such that when you are in such a gathering, then you're going to feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you go away, your condition is going to change as well. And this happens. As long as you are not disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are still connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are still close with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam clarified this for Sayyidina Hanzala radiallahu ta'ala. So this shows us how Tazkiyah already was taking place during that time. And we find also in the Quran as well, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs and mentions to the Azwaj al-Mutahharat that they should adorn the hijab. And then when people come to them to ask them or inquire certain things from them, that they should not raise their voice. Keep their voices low. Why? فَيَدْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَضٌ, Allah Ta'ala mentions. So that it shouldn't be a case that those people who have illness in their hearts, a desire erupts in them. Now who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referring to? One is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where He refers towards the munafiqeen. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to those people who come to the Azwaj Mutahharat. Now, those who come to the Azwaj Mutahharat are not going to be the munafiqeen, they're not going to be the disbelievers. It is going to be the believers. It is the Sahaba themselves. And the believers who are going to come to the Azwaj Mutahharat to inquire from them various masail and things that they would ask from the Azwaj Mutahharat. So it is they that they're going to come. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? That lower your voice, so that you should not create temptation in those people who have marad in their heart. And marad means illness in their heart. And where Allah Ta'ala mentions marad in the heart, illness in the heart, it doesn't mean that those people who have weak hearts and they have heart problems, they might have had a bypass operation, or they might have had a heart attack. Allah Ta'ala is not referring to those people who have marad in the heart, as in those who have physical, heart problems. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to those people who have these type of tama. فَيَدْمَعَ الَّذِي tama, desire in them, and evil in their hearts. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to that evil as being maraz, meaning an illness. And it was these amraz, which is the plural of maraz, these illnesses. For these illnesses to be removed, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent so that وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, He does that tazkiyah, He purifies them. And He purifies them from what? He purifies them from all these maraz, from all these illnesses that were there in the heart. And this we find was a constant thing that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam carried out on the Sahaba. And then the same Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, who, as I mentioned to you, at one stage were involved in so much evil and vice, and were directly involved in all these things, in the evil that was around. But these same Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, now they become such companions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they reach such a position where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. And this is from the highest position that a person can acquire. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions radiyallahu anhu wa radu an, that they are pleased with Allah and Allah is pleased with them. This just shows their closeness and bondship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they have changed in such a way, they have acquired such statuses that Allah is now pleased with them. And we know, each and every single person, our motive of any good that we do is what? Raza ilahi, to acquire the pleasure of Allah. That is our purpose. Whatever good we do, our purpose in life is to acquire the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah should be pleased with me. This is what we need to be doing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says with regards to Sahaba, and our condition is Allah pleased with us or not, we won't know until we don't leave from this world. We do something good now. We cannot guarantee whether we acquired the pleasure of Allah or not. We can just hope. Hope from Allah that we acquire the pleasure of Allah, but we cannot guarantee that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is razi with us, He's pleased with us. This we will only know once we depart from this world. But the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala was such that already whilst they were living, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that radiallahu anhu wa radu an, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is razi with them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with them. Meaning that they had reached that position that Allah was pleased with them. And not only that, but they themselves spiritually reached such a position that they were pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that they were totally content with all the decisions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not like you and I, that when things go in our favor, we become so pleased and we become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because things are in our favor. And na'uzubillah, when things go against our desires, against our will, and some hardships and difficulty befall us, then what happens is we turn away from Allah, we become distant from Allah. And na'uzubillah, we start wondering that why did this desire of mine not be fulfilled? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not help me? Why have I been inflicted in this difficulty? So what happens is, in our hearts, our love for Allah decreases. And this is not a sign of radiallahu anhu wa radu an. This is not a sign of being radhi with Allah. But the Sahaba were such that they were totally 100% pleased with whatever decision Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made with regards to them. And this is the maqam, this is the position that these same Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala acquired. And they acquired this through the process of tazkiyah that took place. Otherwise it would have been, because remember, this raza and this pleasure of Allah, acquiring the pleasure of Allah, this has to do with the intention of an individual. It isn't just to do with the physical attributes. It isn't just to do with the physical attributes, but it is to do with the intention of an individual. For example, a person, in order to acquire the pleasure of Allah, we need to carry out the ahkam, the commands of Allah. One of the commands of Allah is that a person needs to perform his salah. وَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, establish the salah. That is one of the commands of Allah. We fulfill that, we will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be displeased with us. Now to perform the salah, we come and we stand in the masjid and we perform the salah. So we have performed the salah in its complete way. So that we're not performing it at home, but we've even come to the masjid where we've completed and performed it in its best way. In its most complete way, for the male is to perform his salah with Jameah. And he's done that. So, the same deed by which he could acquire the pleasure of Allah, physically he has carried that out. But at the same time, he was performing his salah, but while he's performing his salah, his intention was not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His intention was to show somebody else, to show his friend, to show his work colleague, or to show for somebody else. In his heart, he had shown that I'm performing my salah for the sake of somebody else. Now you and I tell me, will that same physical salah be a means of acquiring the pleasure of Allah or the displeasure of Allah? It becomes a means of the displeasure. So he's performed that physical salah that he needed to do, which he thought that will be a means of the pleasure of Allah, but because tazkiyah wasn't done, his ruhani kayfiyat, his spiritual and ruhani condition was corrupt. So because of that, the same deed which have led towards the pleasure of Allah now no longer leads towards the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Sahaba, by them reaching the position of radiallahu anhu wa radwan, shows that the physical and the spiritual both reach such a level that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with. Because to acquire the pleasure of Allah, both of these have to be correct, as I mentioned to you. For that salah to be a means of acquiring the pleasure of Allah, the external as well as the internal need to be correct. And how the external needs to be correct? For that we have the signs of ta'aleem. For that we have ta'aleem, which is what you are here for as well. The morning session where you did the masail of fiqh. These masail of fiqh, this is to do with the ta'aleem of rectifying the external ibadat of yours. Otherwise, you leave out the faraiz of salah, your salah isn't done. You leave out things that you need to do. Your tahara is not intact. Your wudu is incorrect. In such a way, so if your wudu is not correct, you haven't acquired tahara. You can perform salah in Masjidul Haram, in front of the Baytullah, with great love and affection and everything. No salah will be done. Meaning that your spiritual condition is so strong that you're there in front of the Baytullah. Your heart is attached to the Baytullah as well. And you have the utmost khushu, concentration and khudu in devotion in your salah. But if your tahara isn't intact, the salah won't become a means of acquiring the pleasure of Allah. For it to acquire the pleasure of Allah, your physical ibadat needs to be done correctly. And how the physical ibadat needs to be correct, you have ta'aleem. You have ta'aleem. And this is what Allah also mentions in regards to the mission of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ, that He would teach them the kitab, meaning ilm. And وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, so وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ, the zahir. He would teach them the zahir ibadat, the apparent ibadat, the physical ibadat to do. And وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, to make sure that their spiritual condition also conforms. And when both are there, so that now this individual, his taharat is correct, his salah is correct according to the fiqh. And when we talk about fiqh, as long as it is correct according to the fiqh of the imam that he is following, his salat is correct. His salat is correct. And this is something that is very, very important. And this is something that I even mentioned to the students in the Alim class, when we do the books of fiqh, that when it comes to our salah, there is difference of opinion amongst the A'immah. Difference in Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, difference in Imam Shafi alayhi rahmah, difference in Imam Ahmad and Imam Malik. There's a difference with regards to their fiqh. But the reality is, each one has his own dalail, his proof. Each one has come to his conclusion according to the ahadith that he has in front of him, and his sincere understanding of that hadith. And because of that, each one in his position is correct. Each one in his position is correct. But it is a case of, there are those who have chosen to follow the madhab of one imam. Somebody else has chosen to follow the madhab of another imam. This is the choice that they have made. And each one remaining in that choice of theirs is following that which is haqq and that which is correct. And he performs salat according to that, his salat is correct. And no one else has the right to say to him that your salat is incorrect. And you will find that you will not find this amongst the muqallideen. That meaning that if there is somebody who is performing his salah according to the fiqh of Imam Shafi alayhi rahmah, he will not make tanqeed, or he will not say anything to the person who is performing his salah according to the fiqh of Imam Hanifa. Because he knows that he is following his and I am following mine. But you'll find it is those who do not make taqleed at all. It is always they who are always pointing the fingers. So as I mentioned to you, what is where the physical ibadah needs to be such that it conforms with the rulings of fiqh. And this will be according to whichever imam you follow. So whichever imam you are following, you are correct, and your physical salat will be correct. But still, it hasn't reached that status where it becomes accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until now, the internal, the spiritual does not conform with the correctness of the external. And that is where there is ikhlas in the heart. Where there is ikhlas. And this is a condition for that salah to reach that position where it is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we find just for that one example of one ibadat of salah, where both have to be in that position which is accepted by Allah. Where there is that ikhlas there, and the physical is according. Now this ikhlas, where will that ikhlas come from? And this ikhlas in the Sahaba came from where? It came from وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. When Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did the tazkiyah, he did the tazkiyah of the Sahaba. So that the external also conforms and the internal also conforms. It is when this condition came about in all the ibadat that they reached a position where Allah generally proclaimed, radiyallahu anhu wa radu anhu. That they have, whilst living, acquired the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because all of these have conformed and reached a level which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this condition of both the external and the internal conforming, this is what is very important. Otherwise we will find either one of the two. We may have the internal where we have ikhlas, but we don't know the ahkam, the masail of salah. Because of that, our salah is not of that position that is accepted by Allah. Where maybe the external is conforming, but the internal is not conforming. So again, it isn't accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For that reason, find the ta'aleem and ta'allum. And alhamdulillah, in the cause that we have for you, we are catering for both. The morning session for the ta'aleem, and this session and the further session for the tarbiyah. So the ta'aleem and tarbiyah, ta'aleem and tazkiyah, with both of these you'll find our ibadat will reach that position where it is then accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, it's mentioned to you that this faculty of tasawwuf was in existence from the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu. It was from the missions of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam of وَيُزَكِّيهِ. So nobody can claim and doubt that this is something that came about later on, and that it was not found in the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the true understanding. Inshallah we shall continue tomorrow. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.